Hey guys, Chris Camaro here, and I'm going to be fixing my furnace today because it stopped working and the house is colder than a witch's tit. This is a Lennox brand furnace. It's kind of one of the more common designs. You should see a lot of furnaces that kind of look like this. And in a nutshell, how the furnace works is you got like a main blower that blows the air through the house, and then you've got this exhaust blower. That's what this thing is here. This is the motor, and this is the plastic housing where the actual blower blades are, and it blows the exhaust out this pipe here and out of your house. The exhaust from the natural gas that's burning in the furnace, right? So how this works is you have your thermostat upstairs. You set it to a higher temperature than your house is currently at. Sends a signal to your furnace saying turn on, and it checks this. First it turns on the motor, and if the motor spins up properly, it should create a vacuum, which is what this orange rubber hose is for. That's taking a sample of the vacuum being produced on the other side of the blower and feeding it into this unit here. This is your pressure sensor. And if your pressure sensor detects a sufficient vacuum, the resistance will go to basically zero. Like it'll go from like infinity to zero, and that'll be an indication for the gas valve to open. And it'll start up your pilot and all that, and it'll burn the gas in your furnace. If it doesn't detect vacuum on that sensor, it won't allow the gas valve to open. It won't turn the furnace on. So basically, this thing has a certain amount of time, could be anywhere from several seconds to a couple of minutes, where the computer inside here is waiting to see vacuum on that valve. And if it sees sufficient vacuum, it'll allow it to turn on. If it doesn't see sufficient vacuum, it'll shut the whole system down and just abort. So, simple way you can check to see if it's your sensor or not is just take the leads off the sensor there, short them out. If the sensor's busted, then simply shorting the leads out like this will make the furnace think that the sensor is working, and it'll start up your furnace. Make sure that your blower is working when you do this, otherwise you'll have flames backing up into your house and carbon monoxide and all that good stuff. So it's very dangerous. You shouldn't do it except for diagnostic reasons, which is why I'm going to disconnect this, because I've already tested it a long time ago and I know what's wrong with mine. It's the inducer assembly, which is, like I said, this motor and this blower here. This is the assembly, the inducer assembly, motor plus blower. It's just shot to hell. Bearings are gone completely. Grinds, when it tries to turn on, just makes a whole bunch of noise. Doesn't spin, doesn't produce any vacuum. It's just completely trash. So you have to buy a new one of those. And the part number you can pull off of this sticker here and just look it up on the internet, and buy a replacement unit. You buy this, you look around, hunt around. You can get this for $400. Canadian, which is whatever, 300 American or something. If you get like a professional, you call the guy, right? You just get some guy to come fix it for you. You're gonna end up paying probably upwards of $1,000 for the same thing. So it's not that hard to replace. So you can probably just do it yourself and save yourself like $600, which is what I'm going to do today. So there's a bit of disassembly involved. As you can see, there's a bunch of shit in the way. Got to get some stuff out of here first to get access to this thing. There's some screws holding the housing down, and behind there's a gasket. I'm going to show you. This is the stuff you need, right? You got a brand new gasket. Should come with the new inducer assembly. You might get some wiring harness adapters, which you might need, because the wire that feeds the motor here, it's got like sometimes it's got power and then a separate ground wire, and you might need an adapter to if it doesn't have a separate ground wire, it'll be part of the harness. So there's usually adapter cables that are included in your inducer assembly, so check to make sure you've got that. And then other things you're going to need are obviously a flashlight, flathead screwdriver to get to the hose clamps that are holding the ABS tubing on there, and also a socket driver with a, what is this, quarter inch bit on the end, hex head. That's for those fasteners over there. And basically, really, it's not rocket science. You're just trying to get shit disconnected that's blocking the inducer assembly so that you can pull this, unscrew it and basically pull it out, remove the gasket, replace the gasket, and put the new one in its place and reassemble everything. So we're going to get into this shortly, and I'll show you how it goes. Okay, time for an update. So order of operations that I did this, first disconnect the electrical harness from the motor, then I went for the screws holding the plastic housing on. The back of it looks pretty good condition, the gasket, despite the fact there are only 2 screws holding it on there. This pressure sensor is in the way. You won't be able to dislodge this. You have to sort of like twist and pull out of the out of the space that it's in, but this thing bangs into it, so you have to disconnect it from that clip. There's a little clip back there, you can see it. Just get your screwdriver in there and pry that finger back, and you can pull this little metal bracket off, and that dislodges the pressure sensor. Then it'll just sort of move out of the way, and you can pull this thing out. Up here with the ABS, a couple hose clamps holding this adapter piece on there. This whole unit up top here is all glued in place. You can't move it. In my case, anyway. In your case, it might be different, but in my case, this thing's stationary, can't move. So this yellow piece is the only piece that's adjustable. So again, I just loosen the hose clamps and use a screwdriver to kind of pry that up. Altogether, 5-6 minutes, and I got this thing loose. And the only thing that I have to deal with is this ground wire, which goes down into the bottom here. It's probably connected down there. I don't really want to open the panel up, so I'm probably either going to disconnect it here, or I'll just like cut the wire and twist and solder the new one on there and put some electrical tape or something. It's just a ground wire, so it's not critical, but well, it's important, but it's not like super critical, so you can just like tape it up or something. But other than that, yeah, this thing's ready to come out. I can just disconnect it and put everything back the way I took it apart. So really not that much work. You probably pay like a professional like an hour and a half, probably like $200 just for labor to do this, whereas I did it for free in 5 minutes. I'll probably the reassembly would take another 5-10 minutes. So 15 minutes you can have this thing fixed, and $400 for the part. So really not too shabby in terms of cost savings if you're going to do this yourself, and it's really not that hard to do. So I'll show you when it's all put back together, and that'll be the third and final step, is just reassembling it all. So what I thought was a pretty clean fucking gasket ended up being no fucking gasket. This is my gasket. I just put this on there, but there was nothing there before. I don't know what the hell's wrong with people these days, but put the damn parts in the furnace that are supposed to be there instead of leaving half the shit out. So anyway, I went and took the extra precaution of lubricating my new part. So here you can see the, I don't know how well you can see it, but here's the new inducer assembly, and I put some 10W30 oil, motor oil, on the mating flange, and also on this this outlet, this volute here, which is going to go back into the ABS, just to make things a little bit nice and snug, just to make a nice seal, so there's no gaps in it or anything like that, and also to make the reassembly a little bit easier. Okay, so unfortunately it looks like I'll be making two videos in one. As you can see, the installation is fine, everything's good in terms of the inducer motor that this video was supposed to be about. However, I tried firing it up, and while the inducer motor works just fine, it still doesn't start. And this was not a problem that I was having when I was testing it in diagnostic mode. It seemed to fire up when I forced it to, but now it's not, and I'll show you what the problem is there. Okay, so you can see that the inducer motor is indeed on. However, if you look at the burner, there's no flame, okay? And I'm getting a code that says 1 solid red light and a slow green flashing light, which is open rollout switch circuit, okay? Open rollout switch circuit. Now, what does that mean? Okay, Up here, this big metal plate at the top here, this is your burner. This is where your fire comes from. Your gas valve goes through there and up into this burner section here, and it fires all these flames into the heat exchanger. You'll notice that right here at the top there's a switch with 2 contacts attached to it, and then that goes over here and there's another switch with 2 contacts on it, and these are your rollout switches, and they detect flame or absence of flame. So it basically contributes to some computer logic that basically gives you some binary zeros and ones, and the computer does like a conditional if statement kind of thing where it says, okay, if there's no flame and there's a good vacuum on the inducer fan assembly, blah blah blah, then you can turn the furnace on, and if not, then don't, it thinks that there's something wrong and don't turn it on. Basically, these are supposed to be closed to indicate, closed circuit, otherwise the furnace won't turn on. So I was able to trick it into turning on just by disconnecting this particular sensor up here in the top left and shorting it with alligator clips. I didn't need to do it for this one over here, indicating that this one is probably shot. So I don't know how it happened. I certainly didn't do anything to it while the furnace was down, but for whatever reason this one's blown or busted or whatever, so now I got to get a replacement part for the rollout switch. As you can probably tell, that doesn't even require a video. Like you unbolt those 2 bolts, take the old sensor out, put the new sensor in, bolt it back in, and put your leads back on, and you're good to go. But I'm just trying to show you another failure mode. 2 in a row. I'm not doing too good for this furnace, but yeah, it does work, and I'll just demonstrate that really quickly for you. Fun, I disconnected the rollout switch and shorted it with a couple of alligator clips here to prove to you that it will in fact trick the furnace into thinking that it's working, and it'll allow the burner to turn on. So after a few seconds, first you'll see the pilot light up, and then you'll see the gas actually ignite a few seconds after that. Okay, so there's the first step. And in a few more seconds you'll see the actual flame light up. There you go. Welcome back once again to the video that keeps on going. So turns out the rollout switch wasn't broken after all. I simply didn't understand its nuances. So I tried cleaning the contacts. Of course, that wasn't the problem. Notice this little red thing in the middle of the sensor here with this little black dot on it. Okay, this is actually a very cool sensor. It's a very cool device. It's got like a built-in circuit breaker. Okay, so what happens is, if for some reason something fucks up in the furnace and the flames don't go into the heat exchanger, but instead they're backing up into the house, right? Because let's say the heat exchanger is blocked, or there's not enough exhaust, or whatever, exhaust vacuum, whatever the reason. If the flame comes back from the burner, from where it's supposed to be, and hits this sensor or that sensor over there, the flame temperature causes some mechanism inside this thing to pop this little switch out. And this is what happened earlier on when I was screwing around with the furnace, when the house was cold and I was waiting for replacement parts and I was just messing around with the thing. I must have, had the busted motor, which wasn't producing a lot of vacuum. At some point the flame must have backed out. I'm pretty sure that did happen at some point, and it must have tripped this switch. And I didn't know that it tripped the switch because the thing wasn't functioning, automatically at that point anyway. And this is the first time I'm trying to fire it up under its own power. So I took this thing out thinking I had to buy a new one, and I just examined it a little bit, realized that the switch was a little bit proud of the surface. I pushed it back in, click, and then plugged this thing back in, and sure enough, it works. And if you measure this with a multimeter, with the switch out, it measures infinity on ohms setting. And if you push it back in, it measures like 1 ohm or less, like it's really low. So this really is like just like the pressure switch. It works the same way. It's either infinite resistance or zero resistance, and flicking that switch back is like resetting a circuit breaker, and then it'll have zero resistance on it as long as there's no flame on the other side. So without further ado, I give you the completely fixed and normally functioning furnace with replacement inducer assembly and properly functioning rollout switches. And I'm gonna jinx myself because the damn thing probably won't start now. It better start. That's what I like to see. Finally, it's been like a whole week where I haven't had heat in my house, and this furnace has just been, giving me every single problem in the book. But now everything's good to go, and I can button this thing back up and just go back to living a normal life where I don't realize that I have a furnace. I just enjoy the first world luxury of having heat on demand and high amperage bills. Until next time, this is Chris Camaro signing off.